Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Shostak, it's been stated for decades that some species of cetaceans, whales and dolphins, are recognized for their intelligence. Would you agree with that general assessment?
Yeah, well, clearly they have a higher encephalization quotient. That's a lot of Greek, but what it means is their brain volume relative to their body volume is higher than any other critters on this planet, other than our simian friends and ourselves, right? So by that measure, they are clever. They also can recognize themselves in a mirror. They know that when they look in a mirror, they're seeing themselves, something your dog can't do, right?
Is it generally accepted that these creatures have a means by which to communicate with each other?
There are people who think that. I'm not one of them. I knew John Lilly a little bit, and Gerard Verschuur is another guy who thinks that the cetaceans can communicate by, in the latter case, ESP. I think that there's a great experiment being run that disproves the notion of ESP. It's called Las Vegas.
And I would agree with you there.
Yeah.
But they do vocalize, do they not?
They do, and in fact, sort of a statistical analysis of the sounds that they make show, or at least seem to indicate, that it's a language. It's not just, barking, if you will. So yes, they are clever, and they're quite clever, but you will note that their level of technology leaves something to be desired. That may be partly a consequence of living underwater, where it's hard to smelt metals and so forth and so on. But I don't think that the cetaceans are comparable to humans.
I bring this up because a research scientist by the name of Lawrence Doyle at the SETI Institute has studied information theory and patterns in animal communication as means of understanding how to detect signals from the noise we hear from space. And I'd like your comment on that. Within your comment is my own personal consideration that should intelligent life ever be discovered, whether or not that's, a realistic perspective is subject to debate, I'm sure. But should intelligent life in the cosmos ever be discovered, if for decades we've been unable to communicate with dolphins and whales, how shall we ever expect to communicate with intelligent life if it would be discovered across the cosmos? And how does that relate to Lawrence Doyle's research?
Yeah, well, I certainly agree that the fact that we can't communicate with any other species on this planet may indeed incline you to think that we would never be able to find it elsewhere. I think what it might show is that we might not understand anything being sent, but the way we do this experiment is not by listening for patterns in any signals, messages. Here's the value of pi, here's the Fibonacci series if you're a Dan Brown fan. None of that. We are simply looking at the nature of the signal, the kind of signal that transmitters make, without regard to the message. The message would be much, much harder to find in any case, the bits. So, what language they use, if they use any language, how they've encoded their information, the things that separate whale communication, for example, from human communication, that's sort of, if you will, literally below the radar. So what we are doing is just to try and find the technology they've used. This signal is due to a transmitter. What they're saying is not something we'll know right away, maybe ever.
And that would describe Lawrence Doyle's work?
Yeah, he's interested in finding out, if you have a big brain, do you start using language? At what point do you start using language? I have to say that he has found these statistical indications that the dolphins are using language. Also, in many other species, he claims, even in ants. I have to say I've never been impressed by ants' intelligence, but on the other hand, maybe they're not impressed by mine.
I think that's an excellent note to yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Higgins, and the gentleman from California, Mr. Bear, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr.